My name is Daniel Brooks, and I never thought I'd be standing here today telling you this, because by every account, I shouldn't be alive. I'm just an ordinary man from Ohio, a truck driver, a husband, a father. My life was made of long highways, early mornings, late nights, and too many cups of gas station coffee. I'd kiss my wife, Linda, goodbye before the sun came up, call her when I could, and think about my son Ethan, that 15-year-old boy with a smart mouth and a heart of gold. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Bills, ball games, little arguments, and quiet forgiveness. I never expected that an ordinary night would become the moment that would change everything I believed about life, death, and God. It was after a long haul from Chicago when I stopped at a diner just outside Dayton. I ordered a burger, something simple, something I'd done 100 times before. But halfway through that meal, I felt something was wrong. My throat began to itch, my chest tightened, and suddenly, I couldn't breathe. I thought it was heartburn at first, but within seconds, my lips were swelling, my vision blurring, my lungs gasping for air. Panic filled the room. Someone yelled, "He's allergic! Call 911!" Chairs scraped, voices shouted, but everything felt distant, like I was sinking underwater. I fell to the floor, clutching my neck, fighting for every breath. And then, it all went dark. That's when I died. My heart stopped beating on that diner floor. But my story didn't end there, it began. One moment I was gasping for life, and the next, I was looking down from above, watching everything unfold. I saw my own body lying twisted and pale, the waitress crying into the phone, a man pressing his hands on my chest, counting compressions. And yet, I wasn't afraid. The fear, the pain, the panic, it was gone. There was peace, a calm so deep it felt like it was breathing for me. The noise faded, and I found myself surrounded by silence, alive. Sacred silence that wasn't empty but full of presence. The colors drained away until all that remained was a soft, gray light, and I was being carried as if by an invisible current. I knew I had crossed over, but I wasn't lost. I wasn't alone. I felt like every worry I'd ever carried had lifted from me. Then, in that silence, I sensed it a vibration, a living sound, low and steady, like the heartbeat of eternity itself. And out of that living light, I saw him. Not a man in robes, not a painting come to life, but a being of pure love and glory. The light bent toward him as if every ray of creation knew its maker. I knew instantly I was standing in the presence of Christ. His eyes met mine, and in that gaze, every part of me was laid bare. My mistakes, my anger, my shame, they all rose up before me, yet there was no condemnation, only recognition. It was as if he said, "Daniel, there you are. I've been waiting for you." What flowed from him wasn't just love, it was life itself, the very air of heaven. It filled me, surrounded me, healed me. I wept, not from sorrow but from relief, because for the first time, I felt truly home. There were no words spoken, yet his thoughts filled me like music. "I know you, Daniel. I have always known you." And as he looked into me, the mist began to clear. The gray light gave way to a vision of something vast, and living something I'll never forget. I saw the whole nation, our America, stretching out like a field of light. Every person appeared as a small flame, some burning bright, steady and pure, others flickering weakly, nearly gone. But above them, a heavy fog rolled and churned, thick and dark, feeding on the light below. It covered cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, but I could see it even in small towns, on quiet streets, even inside church walls. The Lord's voice entered my spirit, not in words but in knowing. Watch. And I saw how every word spoken on earth had power. I saw a man shouting at his TV, his angry words flying like shards of glass, wounding unseen hearts. I saw a woman typing hateful comments online, her words becoming darts of poison that pierced another soul. Every insult, every cruel joke, every word spoken in hate fed that fog, making it grow stronger, thicker, darker. Then I saw faces on screens, voices that carried influence, shaping millions of hearts. I saw people like Charlie Kirk, whose words struck the world like hammers, some people inspired, others enraged. And I understood. Our words were no longer just sound, they were weapons. For the first time, I saw myself. I saw the times I shouted at the news, the posts I wrote mocking others, the things I said in frustration. I thought I was just venting, just sharing opinions. But I watched those very words fly out like shards of glass, cutting through the hearts of people I'd never even met. Shame washed over me. I couldn't bear it. "Lord," I cried, "they're just words." But his gaze held me steady, and I understood what he meant before he even spoke. "Daniel," he said, "you build with trucks and steel. My Father builds with souls. What do you think words do to a soul?" His words pierced me. A word of hate is a hammer that cracks the foundation. A lie is poison that rots the roots. Every careless word is a weapon, and every weapon kills what was meant to live. I saw then what I had never seen before, that the real war in our world isn't left versus right, or red versus blue, it's love versus fear, light versus darkness. The Lord showed me people tearing each other apart in the name of truth, not realizing they were destroying truth itself. He said, "The murder is not of flesh, Daniel. The murder is of truth, of unity, of peace. And it happens every moment, 1,000,000 times a day." I wept like a child, broken under the weight of what I'd seen. "Lord," I pleaded, "how can we stop it? The anger, the division, it's everywhere." His presence drew closer, warm and steady like fire on a cold night. "You cannot end the storm, Daniel," he said gently, "but you can be a light within it. Every soul that chooses love over hate becomes a beacon. Every kind word pushes back the fog. Every act of forgiveness weakens the chains of darkness. You may think your words are small, but in eternity, no word of love is ever wasted." Then he showed me 2 paths. One was wide, filled with flames, stones, and noise, the road of hatred and destruction. The other was narrow but filled with light, the path of love. "The world rushes down the wide road," he said, "but my children are called to walk the narrow one." Then his voice turned firm, like a trumpet sounding in the distance. "Tell them, Daniel, the war is not left against right. The war is love against fear, and every soul must choose." I didn't want to leave. The peace I felt there was unlike anything I'd known. But he looked at me with such compassion and said, "Your son, Ethan, believes no one sees him. The bullying at school has crushed his spirit. He needs his father to remind him that he is loved. And Linda, your wife, will soon hear that you have died. She will need you to hold her when that moment comes." Then he said the words that sent me back. "Your work is not finished. I am sending you not into darkness, but as a light against it. Go and tell them what you have seen." The next thing I knew, pain tore through my chest. Voices shouted, "Clear!" and I gasped for air. Light burned my eyes. Paramedics leaned over me. I was alive again. They said my heart had stopped, that I should not have survived. But I know why I did. I was sent back with a message for me, for you, for all of us. Friends, the person you despise, the one who angers you, the one who votes different, believes different. God loves them just as much as He loves you. Every cruel word, every hateful post, every insult, it's not harmless. It's spiritual murder. But every kind word is a healing weapon. Every time you forgive, every time you choose love over hate, you push back the darkness. The battle isn't political, it's personal. The war is not left versus right. The war is love versus fear. Heaven is real, His love is real, and He's calling us to live that love here, now, before it's too late. As I stood in that place of perfect peace, surrounded by light and love beyond words, the Lord began to show me something that shook me to the core. It was as if the mist around us began to lift, and suddenly I saw a vision spread out before me. Our nation, America, seen not from the ground but from above. What I saw wasn't highways or cities or borders, but a vast field of souls, each person represented as a small, glowing flame. Some burned bright and steady, radiant and alive, while others flickered weakly, their light dim and trembling. Yet, above all of it, a thick, rolling fog spread like a storm cloud, dark, heavy, and alive. It churned and twisted, feeding on the light below. The Lord's voice, gentle but full of authority, filled my spirit. Watch. I looked closer and saw that the darkness was thickest over the great cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. But it was everywhere, even in small towns and church pews, even in homes where prayers were still being whispered. The darkness had no boundaries, because it wasn't political, and it wasn't physical. It was spiritual. I watched as the fog fed on something invisible, something that rose up from people's hearts and mouths. Then, I saw it, our words. I saw a man sitting in his living room, shouting at the television, angry at what he was hearing. But the words that came out of his mouth weren't harmless. They shot out like shards of glass, flying through the air and cutting into unseen souls. Across town, I saw a woman typing furiously on her phone, posting cruel comments online, thinking it was just her opinion. But those words turned into poison darts that pierced through the spirit of another person she'd never even met. Everywhere I looked, I saw the same thing. Every insult, every hateful post, every sarcastic remark released something dark, something that drained the light from others. The fog thickened with each word spoken in anger, each joke made in cruelty, each argument rooted in pride. Then I saw crowds, groups gathered together, shouting, hurling words like weapons at one another, convinced they were standing for truth, while their words burned holes in each other's souls. And then, I saw a face on a screen. The Lord let me see it clearly, Charlie Kirk. His voice echoed with power, and his words carried weight. For some, his message stirred conviction. For others, it sparked rage. But what I saw behind the scenes broke my heart. Millions of people listening, some nodding, some shouting, and every time a hateful word was spoken, light dimmed. People took those words and turned them into weapons, throwing them at their neighbors, their co-workers, their own family members. And then I saw myself. My stomach dropped. I saw the times I had shouted at the news, the angry things I'd posted online, the people I'd mocked because they believed differently. I thought it was harmless venting, just letting off steam. But there it was. Every word I'd spoken in frustration became a shard of glass, flying from my own mouth, cutting deep into hearts I'd never seen. Shame flooded me like a wave. I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't. The Lord's gaze held me, not with condemnation, but with truth. His presence was steady, unshakable, filled with both love and righteousness. They are murdering each other. His thought filled me, deep and unmistakable. Murdering? I asked. But Lord, they're just arguing. They're just talking. His eyes pierced through me, and I understood. You build with trucks and steel, Daniel, he said. My Father builds with souls. What do you think words do to a soul? Then he showed me. I saw a soul, bright and beautiful, but every word of hate struck it like a hammer, cracking its foundation. Every lie spread through it like poison, darkening what was once pure. A word of hate, he continued, is a hammer that shatters what was meant to stand. A lie is a toxin that rots from the roots. Every careless word is a weapon, and every weapon kills what was meant to live. The weight of that truth hit me harder than any blow. I realized we were destroying each other not with bullets or bombs, but with our mouths, with sarcasm, with pride, with judgment. And the darkness, that fog over the nation, was feeding on every ounce of it. People thought they were fighting for truth, but they were feeding the very thing that was destroying them. The Lord's voice trembled, not with anger, but with grief. The murder is not of flesh, Daniel. The murder is of truth, of unity, of peace, and it is happening every moment, 1,000,000 times a day. Tears streamed down my face. I saw people tearing each other apart, convinced they were righteous, families divided over politics, churches splitting over pride, brothers and sisters in Christ refusing to speak to one another, all while claiming to defend his name. And the darkness only grew. I fell to my knees in that vision. Lord, I cried, how can we stop this? The anger, the division, it's everywhere. His presence drew near again, not heavy, but steady, like the warmth of a fire in the cold. You cannot end the storm, Daniel, he said softly, but you can be a light within it. Every soul that chooses love over hate is a beacon. Every kind word pushes back the fog. Every act of forgiveness weakens the chains of darkness. His words flowed into my spirit like living water. You may think your words are small, he said, but in eternity, no word of love is ever wasted. I felt his sadness then, not disappointment, but the deep grief of a father watching his children fight. They fight their brothers and sisters, he said, while the true enemy feeds on their rage. They call it righteous anger. They call it strength. But anger that destroys is never righteous, and strength without love is only cruelty. I saw then two paths stretching before humanity. One was wide, filled with sparks and fire and shouting. People rushed down it, pushing and shoving, their eyes blinded by rage. The other was narrow and glowing softly with light. Few walked it, but those who did carried peace within them. The world runs toward the wide road of hatred, he said, but my children are called to walk the narrow road of love. Then his voice grew strong, like a trumpet sounding across the heavens. Tell them, Daniel, tell them that the war is not left against right, not believer against unbeliever. The war is love against fear, and every soul must choose. I wanted to argue, to say I was just one man, a truck driver, a husband, not a preacher. But in his eyes, I saw the truth. The smallest light still breaks the deepest night. Every loving word still pushes back the fog. Every time we bless instead of curse, Forgive instead of fight. Speak peace instead of anger. We win a battle in a war that most can't even see." The vision began to fade, but his words stayed with me. "Daniel, tell them," he said again. "Their words build or destroy. Their speech either feeds the darkness or fuels the light. They must choose which kingdom their tongue will serve." And then, as the light began to fade around me, I understood why I had been shown all of this. Because the power of life and death truly is in the tongue, and our words today are shaping the eternity we will all one day face. When I saw the weight of what my own words and the words of millions had done to this world, I broke down before the Lord. I felt small, powerless, undone. I said, "Lord, how can I stop it? The anger, the division, it's everywhere. The world is drowning in hate. I'm just one man." His presence surrounded me like a warm fire in the middle of a cold night, steady and sure, full of compassion. I felt his love pressing in, and then his voice, strong but tender, filled my soul. "Daniel, you cannot end the storm, but you can be a light within it. Even one light shines in the darkest night. Every soul that chooses love over hate becomes a beacon. Every word spoken with kindness pushes back the fog. Every act of forgiveness weakens the chains of darkness. You may think your words are small, but in eternity, no word of love is ever wasted." I stood there trembling as he spoke, realizing that I had misunderstood strength my entire life. I thought being strong meant fighting harder, proving myself right, making others see things my way. But he was showing me a strength that looks like mercy, a power that lives in forgiveness, a courage that chooses peace when the world demands war. Then he showed me two roads stretching before all humanity. One was wide and crowded, filled with sparks of fire and angry voices, people pushing and shouting as they stumbled over sharp stones that cut their feet. The other was narrow, calm, filled with soft light. Few walked it, but those who did carried peace in their hearts and love in their eyes. "The world rushes toward the wide road of hatred," he said. "But my children are called to walk the narrow road of love." His eyes locked on mine, and what I felt wasn't just instruction, it was commission. "Tell them, Daniel, the war is not left against right, not believer against unbeliever. The war is love against fear, and every soul must choose which side they're on." His voice rang in my spirit like a bell, calling a city to awaken. I said, "Lord, I want to stay here. I don't want to go back. The world is too broken. I'm too small." But he smiled, not the kind of smile you see on a human face, but one made of light and compassion. "Daniel," he said, "your son, Ethan, believes no one sees him. The bullying at school has crushed his spirit. He needs his father to remind him that he is loved, that he is not forgotten." I saw Ethan in that moment, sitting alone in his room, tears in his eyes, staring at the floor. My heart broke like it never had before. Then the Lord said, "Your wife, Linda, is about to receive a call that her husband has died. That call will shatter her heart. She will need you to hold her hand when that moment comes." I saw her, too, driving through the night, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. I wanted to cry out, "Lord, please, don't let her hurt." But he said, "Your work is not finished, Daniel Brooks. I am sending you back, not into darkness, but as a light against it. Go and tell them what you have seen." I felt myself being pulled away, like being torn from home. The light, the peace, the music, it all rushed from me. Pain exploded in my chest, a jolt like fire, voices shouting, "Clear!" Another shock, another jolt, and then suddenly I gasped. My lungs burned as I took in air for the first time again. Bright lights above me, paramedics pressing on my chest, someone shouting, "He's back!" I blinked against the harsh glare, tears streaming down my face, not from pain, but from gratitude. I was alive. I shouldn't have been, but I was. Every doctor, every report said my heart had stopped too long, that my brain should have been gone. But here I was, breathing, seeing, remembering everything. I knew I hadn't just been revived, I had been sent. And from that moment, I carried one truth that has never left me. Heaven is real. His love is real. And it is the love we are meant to live here, right now. When I came home, I hugged Linda tighter than I ever had before. I told Ethan how much I loved him, how proud I was of him, and I saw something lift from his eyes, a shadow, a heaviness that had been there for years. I knew then why I had been sent back. Not just to tell my story, but to remind us all that love still wins when we choose it. Every day, we're surrounded by a war most people don't see. It's not fought with armies or weapons, but with words, thoughts, and choices. The enemy whispers fear, division, bitterness, and pride. But God is still whispering love, peace, forgiveness, and unity. Every cruel word we speak, every hateful post we type, every insult we hurl, it's not harmless. It wounds, it kills, it feeds the very darkness we claim to fight. But every kind word, every act of grace, every decision to forgive, every moment we choose peace instead of hate, those are victories. They are seeds of heaven planted in the soil of earth. The Lord didn't just show me a vision of what's wrong with this world. He showed me the cure, and it begins with us. It begins in our homes, in our hearts, in our conversations. It begins when we love the person who least deserves it. It begins when we choose to lift instead of tear down, to heal instead of hurt, to bless instead of curse. Maybe you feel like me that night in the diner, ordinary, overlooked, too small to make a difference. But let me tell you what the Lord told me. Every light matters. The smallest candle still pushes back the deepest night. You may not end the storm, but you can shine in the middle of it. You can speak words that heal, words that build, words that give life where death once reigned. The world doesn't need more anger. It needs more love. It doesn't need more noise. It needs more grace. It doesn't need more warriors of argument. It needs peacemakers of faith. My friends, I died. I stood in the presence of Christ, and I came back with this message for you. The battle we face is not left versus right, not neighbor against neighbor, not believer against unbeliever. It is love against fear, light against darkness, heaven against hell. And every day, with every word and every choice, we are choosing a side. I saw what happens when we choose hate. It devours the light. But I also saw what happens when even one person chooses love. It sets eternity ablaze. Heaven is calling us to build that love here and now, before it's too late. Because the greatest truth I learned on the other side is this. Love is not just God's nature, it's His strategy, His victory, His kingdom coming to life in us. And no matter how dark it gets, the light still wins. Always.